Welcome to the Programming Lions podcast. How about refugee to pop star to brand builder? Well, today we have Christian Ray Flores with us, a lifelong brand builder across multiple businesses, entertainment, and nonprofit sectors. As an entrepreneur, international pop star, author, and philanthropist. He was born into exile, raised across multiple continents. Through his exponential life coaching, Christian helps purpose driven leaders align how they live, clarify their unique edge, and build personal brands that multiply impact, income, and legacy. Let's go. Christian, welcome to the Programming Lions podcast. We're excited to have you on. You have an incredible background and story from being a refugee to being a pop star, and so we got a lot to uncover with you today. But first of all, just thanks for taking time with us.
It is a pleasure, and I just love the way you're doing this. So I'm very excited about what's going to come out of it.
Awesome. Okay, well, let's get cranking.
So, first question, this is not like so, deep and all that, but is that a real sword?
It's actually, yes, it's a real sword. Yeah, it's a real sword. It hasn't killed anyone. It hasn't been used in battle, but it's a real sword, yes.
That's cool. Okay, well, now on with the real topics. So, we're going to start off at more of the harder topics, and we're going to move toward, the more fun ones with, your music and stuff and all those fun things. But I heard that you were raised inside of a refugee camp, and I don't know much about that. So are you able to, tell us what those are kind of like and, what it is, kind of?
So I was not raised in one, but I did spend a few months in one. So the backstory, boys, is that, in the 70s, this is in the last century, the 1900s, the USSR and the United States were involved in the Cold War, right? Mm-hmm. And what happened is, so there was two ideologies, the capitalist ideology, the communist ideology, and they were really fighting this war in not only between each other, but through proxy through other countries and approaches and stuff like that. So the Western Hemisphere was really declared a zone of vital interest of the United States. The United States didn't want to see another communist regime pop up, like one that popped up in Cuba and became sort of a problem. And the Chileans actually happened to democratically elect a Marxist president. So it was not a dictator. He was democratically elected by the people. And still that was a problem. So there was a coup that was organized impartially with the participation of the CIA to overthrow that guy. His name was Salvador Allende. My parents were Marxist, and so they supported him. Now, they were not terrorists, they were not politicians, they were just normal people who supported a candidate. But because they supported him, and he had tremendous support, he was literally democratically elected. Yep. Once he was overthrown very violently, the military people who took over, they proceeded to put tens of thousands of people into concentration camps and secret prisons, and a lot of people were tortured. All of that was obviously illegal on all kinds of ways, right? And then a lot of people got killed, and thousands and thousands disappeared without notice. Wow. So my father was one of those guys in a concentration camp, and they used soccer stadiums as concentration camps because it held a lot of people. So he was lucky because he was not tortured, and he was, survived, and he was released. But at the time when you release somebody like that, the secret police would follow you around, and it was not unheard of for them to get you back in with all your friends once you led them to your friends, right? Yeah. That's how they got sort of the associates of the potential, dangers to the state kind of people. And so we were lucky because the United Nations had established 2 refugee facilities for expats, for people that were foreigners, to keep them out of the violence. And because my dad was married to my Chilean dad was married to my Russian mom, he was eligible to be part of that. So we were in that refugee facility for a few months. And, to answer your question, beyond the backstory, how did it feel? It felt very, very scary, very uncertain, because I was, even at age 5, I was aware that there were soldiers, there was violence, there was shooting, there was, I knew there was a lot of danger, and I knew that we were in a lot of danger, and I knew that everything, our life would never be the same again. So we lost everything, all property. We didn't know what the future holds. So we were in that place of uncertainty, 100% uncertainty for a while, until we got offered asylum in Germany, in Munich, and that's where we went next.
Wow.
That's, I was about to say cool, but like it's not really
Not
necessarily
really cool.
a good thing.
That's a crazy story. And so, at what age did you move to Germany?
I was probably 5 or maybe 6 or something like that. Yeah, I was.
Okay.
I
Wow,
was small.
that's crazy. And so you still have a lot of memories from this. It's
I do,
obviously
yeah.
traumatic. Yeah.
That's
That's
wild.
insane.
Do you have any like warnings with? Because since you've been in it, do you have any like warnings for the future, maybe?
Warnings for the future. That's a good question. Yeah, I think the warning would be whether from the left or from the right, to avoid tyrannical regimes. To do anything you can to avoid people that will oppress, illegally compel their citizens to do things or not do things.
Yeah.
To crush dissent. And the thing is, tyranny can happen on the left or it can happen from the right. So it can happen on the sort of liberal side or on the conservative side. And I think both are terrible for people.
Yeah. I think that's well said. And it's crazy. We watched a movie actually the last couple of nights. It was around the German.
Oh, Bonhoeffer.
Yeah, it was around the Nazism and the takeover of Germany and how it just kind of happened slowly. And because it happened slowly, people didn't even necessarily pay attention to the fact that all of a sudden, like, these groups were being oppressed and they were being, called out and sequestered, and it's just wild to even imagine how that can happen. But when you're right in the middle of it,
it's horrible.
it's horrible. And we've seen maybe wrinkles of this in the past several years, and so I think it's a good warning to your point that we gotta watch and stay away from that.
Yeah.
So crazy.
Okay,
story.
so an interesting fact about Bonhoeffer, right? So first of all, I think is it the modern Bonhoeffer that just came out?
Yes,
Yeah.
the one by Angel Studios. Mm-hmm.
So the one, I think it was based on the biography written by Eric Metaxas, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
And Eric, I have a quote from Eric Metaxas on my book, The Little Book of Big Reasons to Love America. So it's in a little loop, and a little connection there.
Could you spend a minute just telling us about the book and who it's for and what it's about?
Yeah, so it's a very eclectic book, and I'll tell you why in a second. But I wrote it because my wife told me to write it, and you listen to your wife, basically, right? That's a good
Of course, always.
Yeah.
Always.
So
get
she, as an immigrant, I married an American. She's from Wisconsin. She was very, very American, right? And then, we kept traveling back and forth because we lived in Eastern Europe for a long time, and then we moved to the States. And every time I would be either visiting or when we moved, I would discover something new, and I would point it out to her and say, "Honey, this is really special. America is really special." And I would point things out from my, either economic standpoint or political or freedom or faith or family or philanthropy, all of those little things that are all strong points. But separately, they would be like, yeah, but they have this over here, right, and over there. But in America, they're all at the same time in one place, And I would point that out in a very excited way. And she eventually was like, we need to write these down. These are actually really good insights. So basically what I did is, for a while, I pushed it away because it's so much work to write a book. But then eventually I was like, you know what, I can write a book if it's you can read it in an evening, right? So I was like, okay, it's 10 chapters, 10 reasons. And it's sort of a nice mix between easy read, but also a lot of substance. And I sprinkled in like a bunch of really crazy stories, like some of the ones that you just heard. And then I added, I'm a very eclectic guy, kind of a creative guy. So I added pictures from personal archives, and then I added illustrations where I didn't have pictures that are AI generated illustrations. Then I added a QR code in the chapters where you can go on a page and you can hear more stories, me telling you stories like on YouTube about that thing that didn't make it into the book. Yeah, so basically it's one of those eclectic books. It's hard to even determine the genre. But the idea was to just have people who love America, who've seen a lot of America bashing, just find an appreciation, and almost, it's called, the subtitle is A Love Letter from an Immigrant, from the standpoint of somebody who comes from the outside to say, guys, you have something really special here, and it's worth protecting, nurturing, and fighting for.
Yeah, I love
Wow.
that. This sounds like a fantastic coffee table book because
It is,
it's
yeah.
got some interesting, different aspects to it. So we'll have to check that out, and hopefully our listeners can too. We'll drop a link in the description so people can check it out for sure. And with that, I just have to ask as well. Like today in America, there are so many people who want America to burn, and you're giving some great and articulate points around what a great place it is. We would agree. But what do you think's happening? Like, why are people so frustrated these days and wanting this incredible nation to just burn and restart?
Well, I'm sure there's more than one layer to that, but I would say at the bottom, like the most base emotion is jealousy, envy of the successful one.
Yep.
Like, I mean, we're just envious people. It's very human to envy. So when you find yourself, I think none of us are even immune from that, right? If you're in this place, whatever, health, wealth, beauty,
Yeah.
and you find yourself someone who is like in the stratosphere next to you, you're going to naturally feel insecure. And you're either going to be drawn to the person and say, hey, teach me how.
Right.
Or you're going to go, man, you make me really feel like a loser, and I don't like you for that. And I think that's sort of the base instinct on a general international level, right?
Yeah.
And there are all kinds, and some of it is merited, actually. For example, the CIA meddling in the democratic process in Chile, right, which I was a recipient of. It changed my life forever. Those are big mistakes,
Yeah.
right? And it creates a reputation, creates a stigma. People never forget that kind of thing, meddling.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, and the CIA is notorious for doing that all over the world.
Absolutely.
And I agree. That's like been a big stain on America's reputation. We were a beloved country around the world for a long, long time, especially
That's
through
right.
World War II. And then we started meddling in affairs and doing these, these regime changes.
Nation building,
Yeah. And trying to do it under the table, but everybody knows kind of where it's coming from. And so it can be incredibly damaging. So anyway, well, these are deep topics. Let's get back to our line of questioning, boys.
So, going away from like the deep topics and all that. So, when did you know like what you wanted to do in life?
That's a very good question. And okay, so I think I knew halfway through college. So I was in college and I was studying economics. I was working on a master's degree. And I started early. So it's one of the things is that the high school in Russia at the time was 10 years total. I came back to Russia when I was a teenager. I was 14. So I finished high school there. I wasn't there for the whole time. And so you're done at age 18. You're done. Not later. No, 16 rather. 16. It was 16.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
So you're now applying to colleges, thinking about the future at age 16. And at age 16, you don't know what you want. There are people like that, but I wasn't that person. So I was like, I don't know. Like, I guess, so I, chose economics for whatever reason, right? But I didn't have a passion that drove me to that. I just picked something. And eventually I became a lifelong economics fan. I still am. And I mean, even you can see even in the book, some insights are purely from an economist standpoint, right? Sure. But my passion was in music. I just didn't know that it could be a thing. And it is truly actually not a thing. Like if you plan to be an artist, that's not a career choice. That's like a choice to be unemployed for a while. And then maybe if you can get lucky, maybe the 5%, maybe less, will actually be able to make a living out of it.
Sure.
So it is truly objectively not a very pragmatic choice. And that's probably part of the reason why I didn't do it initially. But then like halfway through college, what was happening in Russia at the time is that it was transitioning from the Soviet state that was very locked down, there's no free market.
Right.
So even if you start doing something, there is no such thing as entrepreneurship. It's illegal.
Right.
To get into the music industry was impossible because it's very state control, top down, and I'm this sort of not very Soviet kind of guy, right?
Right. Okay.
I'm like a Latino looking minority kind of, very eclectic type dude. And I wouldn't be doing Soviet music. I was doing R&B, pop, hip hop.
Yep.
Like it's just decidedly and not Soviet, right?
Yeah.
Let's put it that way. So when the
Yeah.
countries, became clear that the country is like collapsing, I started, maybe there's something there. And literally when I graduate in 91, that's when the country falls apart.
Wow.
So I was like, you know what? All of my friends are going to banking and trade and whatever. And I was like, maybe I should do this because now there's a completely open field. And that's what I did. So I sort of decided I'm going to give it a few years. I graduated with the master's at 21, so it was pretty early. I'm going to give it a few years. I'm young. I can live in a shoebox. Who knows? Who cares, right? But I'm going to regret not trying. That was sort of my thinking.
Okay. So your music career started in Russia.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
How long were you in Russia?
I was there total 20 years before I moved to the States. Yeah.
Okay.
Is it like cold up there all year long?
Not all year long, but I lived in Moscow, but it's like, you just don't get sun. It's like the Pacific Northwest type stuff. Like you don't get a lot of sunshine.
Yeah.
Plus it is cold for like maybe 9 months or something like that. And then even in the summer, it's not all sun. So it's really depressing actually.
Yeah. Well, have you been to Wisconsin? Your wife's from Wisconsin. So
yeah, so she would be, it's sort of similar.
It's similar
but even
probably.
Wisconsin is sort of mild compared to Moscow, actually.
Okay.
But it's sort of in that general vicinity. But I would go, because I toured all over the former Soviet Union, so 15 countries. And that was sort of the cultural space remained. So the TV, the radio, the press all reached all of that space. So I became a big star across all that space.
Yeah.
And I would tour there. And I would tour like mild places like, Ukraine and places like that, or the Baltics. But I would go Siberia. I had several gigs literally north of the polar circle, which was kind of fun, right?
That's crazy.
Like extreme cold. Like the worst cold I've experienced was in Siberia, and it was minus 43 Fahrenheit.
Jeez.
Yes. That was like being on the surface of the moon.
I mean, I grew up in Minnesota, and that's even cold by our standards.
Yeah.
That's wild. And
That
so
is freezing.
so you moved into music, and you became a pop star. We watched some of your videos, and obviously you've matured a bit since then.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
But it's like pretty classic, like 90s pop star genre, and really good stuff. So I don't know how quickly you became popular, but then you started touring all over, right?
Yeah.
And that had to be quite an experience. And so I think it leads into one of the other questions is like, what was it like being a pop star? A lot of people want to know. And then, any kind of pros and cons of that.
It was fantastic. It really was, because there's like 1% of musicians get to experience what I experienced. And so I was so very lucky. And I also worked hard, and I had work ethic, and I sort of studied the business side quite intently. And but it was wonderful in the sense that, you imagine it's the ultimate entrepreneurial experience, right? You have nothing. And it's not like you're creating like a computer or a teapot that will sell. You're creating music that you have no evidence that anyone would like it even in the first place, right?
Right.
So it's like, it's completely unpredictable. And you start writing songs, and then you find your way. You start writing better songs. You find people to collaborate with, like an arranger, a producer, things like that. And it just builds very gradually. And there's so many layers to it, because you need to create some sort of show performance that is good, choreograph. It's in lyrics. It's the sound. It's the image. It's the brand. There's so many lessons that I've learned so quickly, and was so quickly successful, which made me very lucky, because it made me very optimistic as an entrepreneur. Right? Like, oh, I can do this, basically. Right? But the feeling was exhilarating. I remember the first time. This is, of course, pre-internet. Right?
Right.
The first time I heard my song played on the radio, I was in a car with someone, and it was just, we lost our minds, right?
Wow.
It was like, what? Or we show up on TV somewhere, and we know that millions of people are watching our stuff.
Wow.
It's just mind-boggling and so fulfilling. And then, of course, you start by doing, you can get a feel early on. You're playing small clubs and people are responding, oh, this is cool. And you get your first people that come to see just you specifically, right?
Right.
You recognize the faces and you have like your first fans, and it's a small group.
Yep.
And then it sort of scales because it goes through mass media, and it then becomes sort of viral because it covers a massive territory. And you start hearing people in the audience sing your songs back to you.
Yeah.
And that's just mind-blowing to me,
Right.
right? Like I'm in the kitchen
That's
writing this
cool.
little song, and then next thing I know, there's a little crowd singing it back to me. Then eventually it evolves to a sports arena, and you have a sports arena singing back to you what you wrote, as a broke musician in the kitchen somewhere,
Right.
So, and then you have, the President Yeltsin's people connected with my people because they liked my song and they want to use it in the election campaign to help with the youth vote against the
Oh, wow.
communists. I mean, that's a whole different level of.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
So
Wow,
yeah, it
that's
was
crazy.
fun.
That's, boys, you don't know who Yeltsin was, but that would be like having Harris or Trump ask to use your song and help perform
Yeah.
as part of the campaign. Like, that's pretty cool.
That is
Yeah.
Yeah, I assume it'd probably be something like that if it's like an election.
Wait, was that guy a
That
president?
would be so
Yeah,
cool if
he
like
was.
one of your own songs was being sung or whatever right in front of like a bunch of
Yeah.
millions of people trying to vote for like one person.
Yeah, exactly.
That's so cool.
Did you also see horror stories of this kind of experience where people fall into drugs and other things, or they get their head gets too big? How did you manage all of that?
In some ways, I managed well. In others, I did not. So in some ways, for example, the drug thing, right? And it all comes usually from this inflated ego that it's fed by everybody, everybody around you, right? Like it's sort of this, when people make you into something that you're not, it's a persona, you're a persona, not a person, and you're adored by millions of people. It really shifts your ego, and it's a very dangerous thing, right? If you don't get grounded in something that reminds you of who you really are, you lose yourself. So in some ways, I actually did relatively well. I sort of experimented with drugs, but I was so business minded that I very quickly realized, okay, this is not good for business. It was a very straight up type of thing. And then when I would go on tour, when you go on tour and people host you, they usually are sort of these producers that create the event, they advertise the event, they front the money. There's all kinds of things that go into something like that. One of the things, at least at the time, one of the perks that was they wanted is to party with the star.
Sure.
So when you come to a city, they would just roll out the red carpet, right?
Yeah.
And it's, food and drinks and party and girls and drugs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And what I did, I think, well, is that I'd never engaged with those things. And I basically said, I'm here to work. This is a business. I'm not gonna party with you.
Yeah.
And that sort of turned a lot of people off. I had a reputation, right, of like buzzkill kind of guy, right?
Oh.
And so I didn't engage in those things. I wasn't immoral with the girls out there, and there's obviously many.
Yeah.
And it ended there because when I came back home, I was very immoral. And it was almost like, okay, you work hard, then you party hard, right? At home, I did, unfortunately.
Yep.
One of the things that really, really wrecked me was when you become very successful, and actually in anything, you have flaws and you have cracks in your character, in your mindset, and your worldview that sometimes are not as evident when you're not highly successful. When you become highly successful, those things become amplified.
Yeah.
And for me, the thing that was just that I have major cracks in was romance in relationships and family.
Okay.
Because I come from 3 generations of broken homes. My parents were divorced. It was literally the most traumatic experience of my life at this point. And I went through wars, Civil War, the fall of the Soviet Union, but that's the thing that really affected me, right? It was the divorce of my parents. And I had this fear of intimacy and commitment because in my mind, if I fall in love with someone I marry, eventually the whole thing's going to blow up and it's going to affect the kids and all of that. So what I would do is I would sabotage every relationship that got a little bit serious, and I would act out, and I would do things to draw the other person away.
Sure.
I repeated that cycle
Yeah.
until I was dating this girl and I got her pregnant and she had a baby, and I didn't stop. I didn't fix it. I didn't do anything. I just continued to act a certain way, and she left and cut me off from my oldest daughter. So I lost my daughter, and I was just depressed. I had a #1 hit, and I was clinically depressed. I couldn't function, and that's where it just messed me up. Fame really, really, really messed me up. And what got me out of it is Jesus. You know, I met this guy who was a minister, a missionary, Canadian missionary, and he had the amazing godly family.
Okay.
And it was so evident to me that he has something I don't know. I don't know anyone with that, and that's what I need. And I don't know how to do it. So I basically was like, "Hey, can you teach me?"
Right.
And I before that never opened the Bible, never I really looked down on Christians. I felt that they were just sheep manipulated by this old book. That was sort of my my
A lot of
view
people
of
still
them.
feel that way. Yeah.
He embodied biblical wisdom and what it does for the human being, how it makes you flourish, right?
Right.
So 2.5 weeks later, I get baptized, and I literally give all of that rockstar life away. I just cut it off, and that's it. And I was done.
Wow. That's great. So what did you move on to from that?
To preaching the gospel, actually.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and that was later. But what I gave up is the sin, right?
Yeah.
Is the lifestyle.
Right.
And I basically I became very vocal about it. And at first, neither the fans or my even entourage, no one believed that I was actually for real. They was like, "Oh, it's a phase. Come on, you're this emotional, creative guy. You'll snap out of it." That was basically the idea, right? And I was like, "No, I'm serious, guys." And and I went all in actually on Jesus. I have several magazine covers where I basically say I've given my life to Christ, on the cover of a magazine.
Nice. Okay.
So I'm all in kind of guy in general, right? So, and then eventually a few years later, I did transition out of show business because I felt that I wanted to do other things. There were parts of me that they were dormant, doing this one thing, and it was not just faith, but it was. I'm an international guy, and I'm touring in this one corner. So even though some people might feel like, wow, that's not bad, right? But to me, I felt almost claustrophobic. I wanted to be international. I wanted to do other things. I have an economics degree. I want to do something with entrepreneurial stuff, and I want to do philanthropy. I want to build a family, and that was one of the things, right? Is the lifestyle didn't lend itself to a family, and I was so intent on building a strong family. I'm like, I can be bad at anything or mediocre, but I'm not going to be mediocre as a father and as a husband. And if that requires for me to literally change careers, so be it, basically.
Okay.
And also it was sort of this deep sense of, if I can move millions or tens of thousands alive on stage, and I can communicate, and I have a presence, and I have a skill and a gift from God to move people, why am I not using that for eternal impact? That's basically the idea. And I think I need to preach the gospel. And so I basically start pastoring and stuff like that after that.
Okay. Wow.
That's pretty interesting.
Well, yeah.
I'm very curious because we've seen some of your music videos, and you had very long flowing hair, right?
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, at what point throughout this whole time did you cut off your hair?
That's an excellent question. I had long hair for a long time, actually. I think I got long hair, I think I was at maybe 18, 19 when I got long hair for the first time. And the first time I cut it down to maybe something resembling this, Must have been 42 or 43 or something like that. It was a long time that I had long hair.
Wow, that is
Decades of long hair. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and it became sort of, I just became bored with it. I'm like, you know what? At some point, when you reach a certain level of maturity and age, even, it's not really cool anymore. I guess that was sort of my feeling, right? I'm like, I want shorter hair. But yeah, the longer hair, it was a thing. It brought me a lot of attention, and I did shampoo commercials and things like that.
Oh,
Yeah.
I bet you did.
Yeah,
I
my
did.
mom
Funny.
told me about that. That's
Yeah.
pretty funny.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
actually
Is
also
the
pretty
brand
cool.
still around?
It was a Head and Shoulders commercial. It was a great video, by the way, really well shot. They put me in magazines and bus stops. Like, people would go on bus stops all over the city, and I was standing there with a shampoo bottle.
Oh, wow. That's
Okay,
funny.
so here's a if you're a church person, a funny thing. Like, imagine that you do that. I did the shampoo thing when I was already pastoring, right?
Okay.
I was leading a church, and a guy comes to me, a member of my church, and he goes, bro, I was waiting for the bus, and I felt like I was in sin, man. My guilt, like, was really, I had remorse and everything. And then I look at you, and you just look me with those eyes, and I just want to say, I want to confess my sin to you because you looked at me a certain way from the bus stop in a shampoo commercial. It's so funny.
You never know the impact your
I
image will
know.
have, I
Your
guess.
image is
Yeah.
impacted in many different ways.
That was hilarious. Yeah, that was really funny.
That is funny. I wouldn't necessarily call this like a quote, but you like saying stuff about high performance life.
Yeah.
So, what is a high performance life, and how do you consider somebody to have a high performance life?
Okay, excellent question. So, in the Bible, Jesus has this parable of the talents. It's called the parable of talents, right? So there's these three guys, and he said, and the talents at the time, it was basically a measure of money. The modern translation, I think it says gold, bags of gold, right? Or something like that. But the talents were actually a measure of money. So to one guy, he goes, I'll give you 1 talent. To the other guy, 4 talents. And to the third guy, I have 5 talents. And the parable is about what are you supposed to do? What was given to you, right? And it could be, it could be money or inheritance, or that you were born in America
Yep.
and have all these opportunities for education and for lifestyle, and you could start a business here, you could be free here, and all of those things, right? All of it together, or even your personal story, right? What can I do with me being an international person who speaks 4 different languages and is musical and knows economics and then knows the Bible? I mean, it's a very precise set of gifts, like it was given to you. And some of it came from bad things, but it's still a gift that you
Right.
can use to help others. And the parable basically says that from God's standpoint, you're not supposed to just receive and use it, right? And keep it. You're supposed to receive and multiply it. The guy who got 5 bags of gold, he was expected to bring 10 bags of gold back. So he's supposed to go out there and be a high performer, right? To use everything he was given and actually make more out of it. Impact more people, make more money, build a business, write a book, create music. The expectation is that you use the gifts to impact the world, to have an imprint in the world for good. Right?
Sure.
And then the guy who had 4, he brought 4 bags. And then there's one guy who had 1 bag. So it's not even that much that he had to do with it, but he had to do something with it, and he didn't. And in the parable, that's the scary part of the parable. It says, hey, you were a wicked servant. You're lazy.
Oh.
That's a scary. So high performer is the person who multiplies that was given to him or her.
Yep.
When I do coaching for high performers, I basically say, look, you have this set of treasures that you have laying around. Let's help you multiply it so that God is pleased and you live a full life for as long as you can. Basically, that's the idea.
Well, that's really interesting.
That's
And
pretty-
it's actually a segue into something I wanted to ask you about is your coaching, and you do a lot of coaching with various types of people and help them find their purpose. And so how do you go about sort of fishing out what somebody's talents, skills, and purpose is, and then helping them align that with some greater mission so that they, get that reward loop and feedback from the abundance that they start creating.
That's a good question. I basically, the first thing I do is sort of help people develop the skills to not be stressed out.
Okay.
And if you're boys, when you grow up, you're gonna be tempted to be stressed out because life gets really complicated. It's called adulting. Like your dad has gray hair, and part of the reason is that he's stressed out about many things, right? Because life just comes at you with complexity, right? Is the mortgage, the kids, the work, the stuff that is not going well, finances, etc. And when you're high performing, I usually work with people who are, entrepreneurs or executives, professionals who want to really have an impact. They have that drive already. I can't really transplant that drive into them. They were given the 5 bags, right?
Okay.
But when you're given that, you usually you are almost have this engine inside. You want to do well, and what happens is sometimes you just don't multiply correctly because now there's too much complexity. You're not getting enough rest. You have employees. You don't know how to hire, how to fire. You don't know how to scale. You have this unhealthy balance in your life. You don't have a faith, spiritual practices that can give you perspective or anchor you into something more eternal and transcendent. So there's whole sort of thing. It's this whole thing that happens. So when you find yourself, for example, a great example is me in the music industry, right? In the beginning, it's pure fun. I'm writing songs, I'm dancing and choreographing. Somebody invites me to do a club, great. Then you get popular. Now you're selling millions of albums. Now you have management, you have the label, you have dancers, you have employees, you have management, like administrators and other types of employees. So now I need to generate revenue because people's livelihoods are based on how I do.
Right.
So that's pressure, right? That's fragmentation and its complexities. So it's no longer about the thing that you love to do that made you successful in the first place, right? There's many things. And that's why high performance, they just slow down first, then they plateau, and then they either go in circles or just hit a wall. And I don't know what to do with myself.
Right.
I can't even see clearly. So the first thing is, how do you get yourself from out of that space and create a lifestyle changes, some skills to every day change from anxiety to creativity to joy to clarity of mind, because that gives you then the space to imagine something new.
Right.
You cannot imagine something new if you're stressed out and you're in survival mode, right?
Yeah.
So that's like the first step. It's okay, let's get you creative, joyful, rooted, The next step is, let's pick what direction you want to go, because the world will pull in 3-4 different directions. Okay, let's pick, what are you going to say no to? Where are you going to go? How quickly are you going to get there? So that's momentum, I call that, right? The other one is, how do you deal with the inevitable worry and anxiety? It's called resistance, where Satan is in your brain going, who do you think you are? You want to build this company? Really? You want to scale it? You want to write this book? You want to change careers? You're going to fail. You're a loser. Yeah. And that's the internal resistance, and you need the ability to slay those dragons, right?
Sure.
And then the last piece that is all part of the core program, which is sort of the beginning only, right, is how do you create a clear understanding of the most important things in life, the most important dimensions that make you into a healthy, joyful, vibrant human being. And we have a scoring system, actually, and it's really cool. So, and actually I give it away for free. I use it with my clients, but if you go to exponential.life, without the E, exponential.life, there's a little, like halfway through the page, there's a exponential radar, a scorecard.
Okay.
And basically it asks you a bunch of questions, and you can very clearly see, like at a glance, oh, I'm good here, I'm medium here, I'm pretty low here.
Right.
And those are the things that, based on both experience working with a bunch of people and also a lot of studies, those are the things that matter. So it helps you to know to invest in the things that matter most rather than investing in things that really don't matter that much. And that sets you up for success for a lifetime, essentially.
Yeah.
So it's a long-term strategy type thing.
Wow. Well, you said a lot of stuff there that makes a lot of sense. I think people tangled up, and I try to like do little out of body experiences and look in on my life periodically in terms of what I've got to do to create space or create time or create energy, because you're right. You can get so focused on the day to day or the thing that you're doing that you've got blinders on, and then you stop being creative and you stop creating and you stop ideating and you stop moving upwards. And so I think it's great advice. And if you've got tools to help people see that and unpack it, like how powerful that can be. And in fact, I'm very curious. I'm going to dig into some of this myself because we're trying to create a business, right? We're a little team here, a family team trying to create a business. And part of the reason that we're doing it is to create an entrepreneurial spirit and a business mindset in youth and do that early so that when they get older, they have this ingrained in their minds and they know what it takes, and that there's hard work, but there's fun and there's setbacks and there's adversity. All of these things that you learn when you're trying to build something. So I think that sounds amazing. And I guess I would encourage people to go and check out. We're going to drop the link and everything in our description to your page and your site. And so I encourage people to go check it out. You've got some great wisdom there that you just passed on. So appreciate that.
Thank you.
So without further ado, I think we're going to run into a special section.
So this is called rapid fire.
Oh.
All right. That's awesome.
3, 2, 1, go.
What is the coolest invention in your lifetime?
The iPhone.
All right. Would you rather sing or dance for the rest of your life?
Sing.
Excluding us, who is your idol?
I don't think I have an idol. I loved Michael Jackson as a musical idol. Yeah, when I was growing up, I got to meet him too.
Oh wow!
What?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Maybe we can talk about that after rapid fire.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you rather die to a great white shark or flaming hot volcano?
Great white shark.
If you had a superpower, what would it be?
I think the superpower to change people's lives.
Wow. So if you had one executive order as president, what would it be?
Idealistically, I would say small government.
Okay.
Amen to that.
Would you rather be pure vegetarian or pure carnivore for the rest of your life?
I've been a vegetarian. For 7 years, I was vegetarian. I would have to say still vegetarian because you have more variety that way.
Would you rather fight one 1,000-pound duck or 1,001-pound ducks?
The first one.
So one
One
1,000.
big duck.
Yeah.
All right. And then last one, have you ever been stuck in a bathroom stall without toilet paper?
Yes.
Same here.
Yeah.
Well,
Max.
that concludes rapid
Okay.
fire.
Oh, fantastic. With that, we'll wrap up the podcast. But Christian, it was really interesting hearing more about your background. You shared a lot of great wisdom with us here today. And so as we wrap up, can you tell us like the best way to get in touch with you for our audience to learn more about your services and things that you offer?
If you're like, I need some coaching from this guy, go to exponential.life. Exponential without the E. It just starts with an X, the cool way to spell exponential.
Right.
And you'll find more details, testimonials, things like that, and ways to connect. If you feel like, hey, there's some really good insights there, go to christianrayflores.com. This is my newsletter.
Okay.
And I drop, basically, there's a free version of it that drops every Sunday. There's a paid version of it that drops every Wednesday. You can choose whatever, but it's basically the best stuff I have, the best value I have, I share there. Podcast episodes, my favorite books, strategies, insights, everything I invest in that newsletter. And it has a bunch of subscribers, so I think you would enjoy it as well.
Okay, awesome. Well, thanks so much for your time and best of luck to you.
Yeah,
With
thank
that,
you.
we'll wrap it up.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you, guys. This was fun.